Everyone, Alicia here. I wanted to check in to see how you're doing. It's been a rough week in our collective community in the United States, which is where I am currently residing, and checking in if you've had time to process, rest, recharge, and really connect to um, yourself, your body. What do you need? But also, what are you being called to do in this moment for action in terms of the social justice work that needs to happen? And how do you transmute that anger and that frustration and that rage after you feel your feels, right? We can't ignore them, don't bury them. But how do we transmute that to action? How do we figure out which lane we're going to be in this work? If you've actively committed to showing up every single day to dismantle systems of oppression and power dynamics in our society, it's a daily commitment. And sometimes we can burn out, we can fall into despair, we can feel hopeless because it feels like a huge um, weight that we carry if we're in this work. That's why rest is important. If you want to learn more about rest as resistance, I highly recommend the NAP Ministry. They talk about it, and that's where I also learn a lot from. And what am I recommitting to? This is not something that I've been doing since last year because of the great uprising due to George Floyd's murder. Rest his soul, rest in power. Or this week with the trial and the death of three more children. Um, this is something that should be collectively dismantled every single day, in every moment. Um, and I'm showing up online in this way, not only because we are in a panini, but also because this is the work I have decided to commit to professionally. If you're new to who I am as Delicia online, if you don't know me from my career as a teacher or higher education professional, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit as to that background of experiences. And if you want more information of what workshops I've led, what scholarships I've had, what programs I've led, please go to my website, www.deliciaalarcon.com/expertise. That's where you'll find more details about my resume. However, I want to talk to you one-on-one here, you and me chatting about why I do this work and why I'm committing to showing up in a online professional space to hold workshops, to hold group programs, to hold conversations about my own anti-racism journey, but also about collective social justice work that we all need to be doing. And my family is from Paraguay, which is in South America. My parents are immigrants to the United States, and I live that experience at the intersection of being a woman, first generation student, and also a cis hetero normative individual that navigates the world in that way, or cisgendered heterosexual human. And also talk through my familial history, right? My grandfather on my mother's side, Mario Esteche, he was a direct action protester and revolutionary against the dictator in Paraguay. So he was in direct opposition to the militarization of the Paraguayan people in Paraguay, in South America. He was exiled, he was thrown in jail, he led a hunger strike during his time in jail. And he also mobilized his classmates and his friends and community members to start the Movimiento 14 de Mayo. So I share that history because that direct action protesting is literally within my family and my veins and my DNA. And as I get older and as I navigate how I want to show up in this work, I've realized that my lane is education. How do I show up as an inclusive educator? How do I advocate for my students? And how do I connect with individuals in these spaces to center the most marginalized voices. This is the work I've been doing not only as my life, as my familial history, and as a racialized Latina in the United States, or Paraguayan American, I have done some trainings in terms of um, conflict resolution and restorative justice training and frameworks. And my work in higher education as a program coordinator in the Multicultural Center, I did workshops and trainings around equitable spaces, the politics of space, the safe zone training for LGBTQ folks on campus, um, difficult conversations around race relations in the United States, also trainings on intersectionality, microaggressions, critical race theory. All these big academic sociological terms is part of my undergraduate training and research and understanding of academic frameworks, but also in workshops. And how do we take these big level academic terms and make them into practical, actionable steps to be an active bystander, a equitable human, and really support the efforts of those most marginalized in our communities. This is the work that I have done in higher education, in undergrad, as an orientational, as a first year mentor, through the professional development training on social identities. So I've been doing this work in academia or in workshop development for about 10 years. And as a human, for almost 30 years, because this is who I embody, this is who I am. At the core root is bringing social justice, anti-racism work, diversity, equity, and inclusion, whatever buzzword you want to use to define this, but the work is internal and it's individual and it is daily. We personally have to reckon with where our power, our privilege, and our marginalization intersect in any given moment. And that is drawing from Kimberly Crenshaw's work on intersectionality. And though I have that academic background and training and teaching, it doesn't stop there. We have to move from academia and from our space of rest into action. We have to mobilize and we have to continue this organizing efforts to really truly dismantle the systems of oppression that exist. The patriarchy, misogyny, sexism, racism, classism, elitism, all the isms stemming from white supremacy. And when I say white supremacy or when I say whiteness, I don't only mean a white identifying person or Anglo person. We all have internalized whiteness and internalized white supremacy because of the indoctrination through which we go through in our lives. And no matter where we grew up, no matter where our family's from or how we have been educated, it's within every layer and fabric of our society. So that brings me to today. What am I working on now? And last year I led a workshop with 5 pillars of understanding that I believe are the foundational root of moving more into the work and moving more into action, because we have to understand where we come from and who we are before we can really show up in the work. And that is intersectionality, microaggressions, critical race theory, white privilege, white supremacy, white violence. How does that show up daily in our lives? How to be an active bystander and moving through understanding our social identities, right? Whether we decide to not be in those boxes that society places us in, that is how the world may view us or socialize us or racialize us. So I'm bringing this workshop and expanding it across 8 weeks of a group program, from 90-minute workshops across 8 weeks, where each week we are going to talk about one of those academic frameworks and topics and how does it relate to your personal life, and include reflection questions, articles on learning more and how to work through that, and bring that workshop to a larger framework of understanding, because we can't tackle everything in a one workshop. You can't do your anti-racism work in just one workshop or read one book or two or 10. This is lifelong, every day, right? Just like I'm inviting you to be part of this program with me as your facilitator, teacher, if you feel called to work with me, I also am still in containers and in education and continuing my growth, because this is never ending, right? I am also in containers with, according to Weeze, was an anti-racism educator on Instagram, her name, Weeze. Check Your Privilege with Maisha T. Hill, Sincerely Letty. I learned from all of these educators online, Rachel Cargill. There's so many. You can choose who you want to work with. They all have paid containers and they all have different approaches to the teaching and the work. So I'm really excited to bring this to life because, again, we're in a hard week and we're in a reckoning. That's why I'm calling it collective reckoning. It's an individual, but also collective reckoning to really talk through these difficult topics. And I'm going to provide the space to do it without any judgment, and where you can ask the hard questions, you can stumble on your words, you can show up as you come, and we'll work through it together. If I don't have the answer and I don't know how to answer it in an appropriate way with all the resources at hand, I will ask someone. I will reach out to my educators. I will reach out to whoever is an expert in the field to answer the question, right? I don't know everything. I do not. I'm still a student in this work, as we all are. So another thing is, as my Spanish teacher background, right? To teach a language, I have to teach the vocabulary and I have to teach the verb tenses and I have to teach sentence structure before you can form a sentence and before you can speak the language. The same works here. I'm going to take those skills from Spanish teaching, and here I'm going to teach you the vocabulary, the words you need to know, the structures, the academic frameworks, so then you can speak the language and you can form sentences in this work and then move into action and show up in action. If and figure out, where is your lane? Not everyone's lane is direct protesting. Not everyone's lane is education. Not everyone's lane is showing up in workshops and teaching. Sometimes we have to show up in our families and do the work internally in our families. Sometimes we are donating. Sometimes we are sending direct action protesters money and supplies because they are on the boots on the ground. Part of this work is discerning where you fall in your lane and doing that and running with that. My grandfather made a choice to be a direct action protester against a dictator. Cool. He wrote books about it. That was his work. As his granddaughter, my decision is to show up as an educator, as a person who teaches these difficult frameworks and brings it down to layman's terms and understand how we're socialized in our world, right? As a my background in psychology and Spanish language and literature and in educational studies. I taught Spanish. I tutored students since I was in high school for almost 10 years now. So this is the lane that I love to be in. I love to read books. For me, I love to read academic textbooks. You know, the nerd in me loves that. But I understand that's not everyone, and not everyone needs to be an academic in this, to be an active bystander. No, you need to understand it, grasp it. Cool. Now, how do I make it better? How do I make it a better world where a police officer is not shooting a 16-year-old girl on the street in broad daylight when she was legally defending herself in a stand your ground state? Second Amendment doesn't apply to her and just to some people? We have to unpack that. Why is the media and people on social media adultifying her? The same with Adam Toledo. That was Makia Bryant. Say her name, rest in peace, rest in power. Adam Toledo, 13-year-old boy of Hispanic Latino background. Why is that happening? Dante Wright, 20 years old, could be a sophomore or junior in college, young adult. Why? So these are the reasons that I grapple with daily and talk through with my cohorts and friends, colleagues. And when I worked in higher education, right, we had spaces for students to process and heal and work through those emotions and show up the next day. Did higher institutions and teachers or school districts give students a mental health day yesterday because of what's going on? Yes? Cool. No? Why not? They're grieving, they're processing, right? So these are the things that I talk about and I think about, and as an educator, advocate for policy reform, educational reform. I did, like I said, I taught Spanish through Teach for America. This is who I show up for daily and advocate for students daily in Trio Student Support Services as an academic counselor, for supporting them with financial literacy, applying to grad school, finding a job as a career coach. The lens through which I move in the world is equity centered and equity based. Who who are we actively marginalizing, but and also who are we actively advocating for to make sure they are part of the conversation and they are part of the room that we're in. So that's a little spiel of who I am, why I do this work, and doing this in real time with you so you know where I'm at in my journey as well. And bring it to Active Bystander and use practical tools for small businesses, community members, whoever you identify as and how you show up in the world. This course could be for you. So if you'd like to join me for 8 weeks and talk through these things, check out the link in the bio for all the details. I will also be having a master class, a free master class about these 5 pillars to talk through, ask me questions. And I also have a mini course, which is the workshop I led last summer. If you need an intro of who I am, how I teach, you can participate in that. All the information is in the bio. So again, my name is Delicia, and I hope to see you in this program. For this round, I'm taking 10 people, only 10 because I want it to be a small cohort and really have a community building aspect to it and a community feel and very intimate setting. If you have questions, let me know and talk soon.